Said his house ain't a home and he's losing sleep. Wife cold as steel, vibe off track. Asked me how the hell to get his edge back.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another sponsored video. We didn't have one last week, which I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. But I did put out on social media that if you wanted to sponsor a video, you could. And I dropped the link on there. And so someone took me up on that. So I got this email from a guy. He says, should I get a vasectomy in my 20s? And God bless Rollo Tomasi. He put out that tweet a couple of years ago talking about the quickest path to success or whatever. And it was like a list of things. And one of them was like, ignore women and get a vasectomy and ignore all sedations and all this kind of stuff, like all sorts of great stuff. But people were losing their mind about the vasectomy thing. And the funny thing is what Rollo said was the quickest path to success, not the only path to success, nor does everyone need to do this. But a lot of people just took it and ran with it. But there was a lot of young kids that got this idea that, yeah, maybe I should get a vasectomy in my 20s. And so I get this question quite a bit. So he says, hey, Paul, I'm a 24-year-old guy currently in college working toward a degree in computer information systems. I want to become a software developer, and I'm trying to keep my life on track while I finish school and start my career. Okay, cool. Like, software developers make really good money, you know, and I was actually originally going to school for computer information systems. The reason why is because when I was first going to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I started going to a community college. And at that time, in order to draw from the Montgomery GI Bill, because I used to be in the Navy, in order to draw from the GI Bill, you had to pick a major. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was just taking my general ed stuff at first. And I said, business, I'll major in business, like just something random, right? Well, while I was going to college, I was working as a security guard. And I just remember, like, I ended up working one of the sites that I worked at was the Neuroscience Institute in San Diego, which, if you guys haven't been there, it's a pretty cool looking building. They have architecture students there all day long on the weekends to study the architecture of this building because it's really far out. And they also have a amphitheater in it where people put on concerts. It's a weird place to put on concerts and plays and stuff like that, but they do that at the Neuroscience Institute. Anyway, so I would work graveyard shifts and I would sit at a desk and work on my homework all night long and listen to coast AM radio and surf the internet. And then once an hour, I would make a round of the whole place and check on like the server room and check all the offices and go check the auditorium and the laboratories, because they also had labs there where they were doing research on fruit flies and stuff like that. It was interesting. They were doing sleep deprivation studies on fruit flies. And so there would be scientists there in the middle of the night clapping their hands, keeping fruit flies awake. Anyway. So one of the things that I would do is I remember one night I had the epiphany that I wanted to get into information technology. And I distinctly remember this. I walked in the server room and I was just looking at the server racks, and I was kind of like, I bet the guys who put all this together, I bet you they could surf the internet all day and make really good money. Because at that time, it was my dream job. All I did was once an hour walk around. The rest of the time, I sat at a desk, I surfed the internet, and I listened to Coast AM. And I was like, if I could do this as a career and make good money, I just want to do this. And so my motivation was, I want to find a high-paying career where I can surf the internet all day, right? And so when I saw the server room, and I was like, oh, I bet you these guys surf the internet all day because, this is the internet, basically. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what the internet is, a bunch of interconnected computers. I was like, this is what I want to do. So I went back to college and I went to the career counselors. I said, I want to change my major. Right now, I picked business arbitrarily, but I want to be in something to do with computers. I don't know what yet. And the career counselor goes, well, why don't you major in computer information systems? It's still a business degree. It just has an emphasis, and then you don't really have to change anything. And here's a sheet of paper that maps out the classes you have to take to start going down that path. And I was like, okay, sounds good. So I was originally majoring in computer information systems. And then when I transferred to San Diego State is when I really started taking classes in computer information systems. Before that, it was all just general ed. So I didn't really know what a computer information systems degree was. And it really is more on the development path. It's not on the network systems and network infrastructure path. And by that time, I was already working in IT. I had already managed to get a foothold into the IT space, and I was already a senior systems engineer. So I was like, oh, this is not what I want to do. And so I transferred to Coleman University, which is now out of business now, which is it was an accredited trade school that was accredited up to master's degrees. And it used to be called Coleman College. If you guys Google it, Coleman College in San Diego. When I went right before I started there, they changed their name. They rebranded to Coleman University and stuff. And so I decided to go there, and I pursued dual degrees, one in computer networking and one in network security. So I ended up getting out of the CIS degree stuff, but I digress. Anyway, he goes back and he says, lately, I've been thinking about getting a vasectomy. I don't have any kids, and honestly, I don't plan on having any anytime soon. Maybe not ever. My biggest fear is accidentally getting a woman pregnant before I'm financially stable or fully established. I've seen what that's done to some of my friends, and I don't want to end up trapped in a bad situation for the next 18 years because of one mistake. Well, I'm going to be real with you, man. I don't recommend this. I don't recommend, if you're in your 20s and you haven't had any kids yet and you still might want to have kids, I don't recommend you get a vasectomy. Okay. I understand the fear of getting a girl pregnant before you're ready. And I had a few scares. I had a few scares myself in my past. Before I had kids in high school, I dated this crazy Latina that used the pregnancy scare to get me to not break up with her once. And then she tried again the second time I went to go break up with her, but it didn't work. And luckily it was all a big nothing burger. She was lying about both times. So thank God, thank God I didn't end up a father when I was a teenager with that crazy chick, for one. And then I had a scare with, if you guys tune into the podcast, I dated a cop chick. I call her cop chick. I dated cop chick for a couple of months after my relationship with red pill chick. And I had a scare with her. The condom broke, and I was freaking out about it. And so I went out and got her the morning after pill. And this was really what set me over the edge to get my vasectomy. Because I do have a vasectomy. I have one, but I also have two kids. Is I went out and got her the morning after pill, and then she acted really indignant that in my mind, the thought of having a child with her was a terrible thing. And it wasn't her. It was, I already had kids, and the thought of starting over at my age was just a terrible idea in general. It had nothing to do with her. But of course, she had to make it about her. And really, this was all before I understood intersexual dynamics. It was one big shit test. Right. But after that, I realized I need to quit screwing around. I need to go get a vasectomy. And I had thought about getting a vasectomy after my divorce back in 2014. But I ended up not getting one. One, just because, like a lot of us, you just procrastinate on that sort of thing, right? You're like, yeah, I should get one. And then you just never pull the trigger on it. Well, I ended up in the relationship with red pill chick, and red pill chick had her tubes tied. So that gave me an extra 4.5 year buffer of not having to worry about that sort of thing. Right. But after cop chick was when I was like, dude, you have to quit screwing around and go make an appointment and go get this done. And so I called my primary care office, and I said, I want to get a vasectomy. Like, what do you recommend? And they're like, oh, we do it here in the office. Just, come on in. And so I went in, and they gave me some pamphlets and stuff, which we'll talk about here. But again, the difference is I already have 2 kids. I just don't want to start over. If that's you, if you're like in your late 30s, early 40s, and you're divorced and you already have kids and you don't want to have any more kids, by God, get a vasectomy. It is so freeing. Not have to worry about getting baby trapped. You know what I mean? And not having to start over again. Like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. I had one of the guys in the space, a guy I'm friends with. He's a little more blue-pilled than I like, but I still respect the guy. In fact, he posted something hilarious today on Facebook. He posted, for the ladies, without blaming men, what has caused like problems in your relationships in the past. And of course, none of the women could take any accountability for it. And that's where he was going with it. He was really hoping to find some women that would take some accountability for their actions in a relationship. And of course, they can't do that. And so I just posted in the comment section, an animated GIF of a guy eating popcorn. Anyway, but Rudy is roughly my age, and he got together with his love witch, he calls her, and they have a baby together. And I'm like, I couldn't even imagine, dude. I couldn't even imagine at your age starting over. Like, no, pass, hard pass. Anyway, so he says here, at the same time, I've read mixed things about vasectomy reversals. Some sources say they're pretty effective. Others say once you do it, that's it, you're done. I don't want to make a decision I'll regret later if I change my mind about kids. So here's the rub, and why I don't recommend guys who haven't had kids and think they might want some someday. This is why I don't recommend them get a vasectomy. Technically, yes, they are reversible. Technically. The effectiveness, though, is based on variables that are out of your control. Okay. So the effectiveness is based on time since the vasectomy matters. Okay. Best results are within 10 years of the original procedure. And then there's basically 2 different types of procedures, right? So it also depends on the kind of procedure you had. The vasovasostomy, and I'm probably butchering these, vasovasostomy, that involves rejoining 2 ends of the vas deferens that were cut during the vasectomy. The success rate for that procedure is around 80 to 90%. Seems pretty high. But again, you also have to take in the variable of time, right? And then you have the vasoepidemostomy. I'm terrible at these. Vasoepidemostomy. And this is used when the vas deferens is blocked or damaged beyond the point of reconnection. And the success rate for that procedure is lower, around 50 to 70%. So I think the procedure is based on how good your doctor was the first place that did the vasectomy. And I'll tell you what, there's new procedures on doing vasectomies now where it's painless. But when I did my vasectomy, I think my doctor did it the old bone saw way where it hurt. It hurt like a son of a bitch. And I've done videos about this, but I was on the table. They give you a local anesthetic. They don't put you fully under. So they just, put Novocaine in your scrotum. And then they make an incision, and you don't really feel that. But what you feel is you feel the tug of the vas deferens. So the guy pulls the vas deferens out, and to me, it felt like him yanking my guts out through my nutsack. It fucking hurt. And it took about 30 minutes per side. So I was there for about an hour, just death gripping the fucking table the whole time. Now, I say that just to prepare you for it, but to me, it's totally worth it. It wasn't so bad that I would say don't do it, but especially for older guys that have already had kids, like, do it. Like, the pain's worth it, right? But it hurts like a son of a bitch. So just be prepared, like, really, call around and talk to the different doctors in your area and find out what their method is of doing it. And if they can do it in and out, like with orthoscopic fucking robot hands now, and they knock you out for it, like do that. You know what I mean? But my doctor's office, they just local anesthetic and fucking, you know, some wire snips or some shit. Fucking hurt. I also live out in the middle of nowhere, you know what I mean? So I don't know if they just don't have that kind of technology yet, because we're still we're still fighting the Indians out here, you know what I mean? Anyway, the success rate, going back to the variables, success rate is higher for younger couples. So like right now you're 24. If you have it, you know, between now and 34, which is in that 10-year period, you're still going to be relatively young. You probably have a higher success rate, right? But if, let's say, you're the kind of guy who's like, I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to get married. You keep pushing off marriage and shit and marriage and kids until you're in your 40s. Success rate's going to lower, bro. Okay. Like having kids is a younger person's game. Okay. Like women are built to have children in their mid 20s. Women are built for that. They're not built to have children in their fucking 40s and 50s. You know what I mean? Like, in fact, their eggs are all dried up by their 50s. You know what I mean? And then women have children in their 40s, and then they have autistic children. So it's like, you don't want to wait too long for that kind of shit. It also depends on the skill of the surgeon. If the surgeon's not that great of a surgeon, you know what I mean? Like, that's out of your hands, right? What do you call a doctor who graduated medical school with a C average? You call them doctor. Okay. There's plenty of shitty doctors out there. Okay. Just because they have the doctor titles doesn't mean they know what the fuck they're doing. Okay. But overall, the success rate for vasectomy reversal is around 60 to 90% for sperm recovery and 30 to 70% for pregnancy. Okay. So it's not a guarantee. All that being said, when I got mine done, they gave me a booklet about it that had a lot of information. This is another reason why I have this opinion. Okay. They gave me a booklet about it. And at the end of the book, so the whole book describes the procedure, what they're doing, why it works, and all this kind of stuff. And then they talk about the reversal process. And there's this whole thing about how they reverse it if you want a reversal. But then they at the end say they do not recommend vasectomies for temporary contraception because they cannot guarantee the effectiveness of the reversal. They can't guarantee it. Okay, so they don't even bother. They're like, we don't recommend this if you plan on having kids someday. So for me, it's not worth the gamble if you think you might want to have kids someday. Like having children it's such an important one decision, but two, once you have kids, it's one of the greatest gifts that you can get in this universe. All right. And so if you possibly want one, why would you fuck up the chances of a successful pregnancy? You know, like that's just something to think about. Okay. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm telling you my opinion on it because you asked for my opinion. But there's alternatives. Okay. Like you don't have to just live in fear of these evil whammon baby trapping you. Okay. Condoms are still 99.9% effective. And then there's morning after pill, right? If you're in a committed relationship, if you can convince your girl to get an IUD, I highly recommend those over hormonal birth control. My ex-wife, when we were, before we had our first kid, she got an IUD, fucking awesome. Okay. Then she went and had that removed when we decided to try to have our daughter. We had our daughter. And then after we had our daughter and we didn't want to have kids for a while, she got another one put in and it was amazing. And then when we decided to have my son, we tried and had that removed and had my son. It was a fucking great thing. Right. But the thing is about hormonal birth control, it requires her to be responsible enough to remember to fucking take the things, for one. And two, it makes women fucking crazy. It makes women not see clearly. There's all sorts of studies that show that women on birth control are almost constantly in a state chemically where their body believes they're already pregnant. And when the woman's pregnant, she's really looking for like beta traits in a man. You know what I mean? And so if you double down on the beta traits, when she finally comes off that hormonal birth control, she's going to look at you with disgust because you're a fucking beta. And she's going to go, I don't understand this. This guy's not a fucking alpha leader of men. He's fucking, made me his whole world and shit. So it makes women crazy. But one of the big things about her having to remember to take it, and a lot, I can see women fucking screaming at this right now, like, what, you don't think women are responsible enough? When I was dating Red Pill Chick, her teenage daughter ended up getting pregnant her senior year in high school because her mom decided to leave her birth control management up to her daughter, her teenage daughter. Now, one might argue, well, she was a teenager. She didn't know what the fuck she was thinking. Okay. But there's plenty of women in their 20s and 30s that they're just as bad. Okay. There's plenty of them. Not all women though, but there's plenty of irresponsible people out there. Right. Well, her teenage daughter, what I liked about the situation was her teenage daughter wanted to be responsible. Okay. So her teenage daughter said, Mom, I have this boyfriend. He and I want to be sexually active, but we want to be responsible. I don't want to get pregnant because Red Pill Chick got pregnant when she was in high school. So she's like, I don't want to get pregnant in high school like you did, Mom. So I want to get put on birth control. And her mom, having gotten pregnant in high school, was like, I don't want you having sex, but yeah, I also don't want you getting pregnant either because it makes life infinitely harder than it needs to be. So she took her daughter to the doctor to get her on birth control. And fun fact, teenage women, like in the state of Colorado anyway, don't have to bring their parents to the doctor to get put on birth control. There's a state law that allows girls to go get birth control without their parents, Anyway, you can argue with each other amongst, whether that's a good idea or not. But anyway, so they did the right thing and they went and got her on birth control. But then when her prescription ran out, instead of doing the responsible thing, saying, hey, Mom, can you renew the prescription? I'm almost out of drugs. She just fucking skipped it for a whole entire month. And guess what happened in that window? She got pregnant. So it's a terrible idea. Okay. And then there's some crazy chicks out there that purposefully go off birth control to baby trap a man, right? So it's one of those situations where Iron Rule of Tomasi number 5 comes into play, which says never allow a woman to be in control of the birth. You know what I mean? Like if you as the man, once that sperm leaves your body, you don't get to say what happens. You don't get to say whether you keep the baby. You don't get to say whether the baby gets put up for adoption. You don't get to say whether she has an abortion or not. It's her body, her choice, bro. So it behooves you to be in control of that. Okay. All that being said, condoms work more often than they don't. So you'll probably be fine if you have a condom. And then if something happens, the morning after pill is the next best thing. If she doesn't want to take the morning after pill, you can't hold her down and force it down her throat though. So you might be fucked. But man, I've always just used condoms, and even the occasional break or whatever, it's never been a big deal. You know what I mean? The only surefire way, you know what I mean, is to just not be having sex with a bunch of chicks out there, in your 20s, if you're really worried about this sort of thing. Just what's the priority? What are your priorities? You know what I mean? I don't know. Hope that gave you some food for thought, though. Okay, I don't recommend it in your 20s if you haven't had kids. That's it. Now you might take this information and go, no, that I don't know about those condoms, man. I think I'm going to do it and take my chances with the reversal. Okay, but that's not a guarantee either, right? There's all these like risk reward things you have to really, really plan out here. But that's all I got on this subject. One of the Wolfpack guys wanted me to do an entire pod class dedicated to this, and I'm like, there's really not much to say about it. It's either like, it's up to you, man. But yeah, technically it's reversible, but do you want to take that chance? Okay. That's something that only you can determine. Right. All right, cool. Hey, Pamela on Facebook. Nice to see you here, Pamela. Good to see you. Smash that like button, would you? That's all I got for this episode. Guys, if you want to sponsor a video, go to video.comeonmanpod.com and sponsor a video. I like to do these on Tuesdays. But that's all I got. Tune into the live stream tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to talk about why being unavailable is irresistible to women. Pamela might not agree with this, but she will after she watches tomorrow's episode. All right, guys, that's all I got. Smash that like button, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Nope, not that one. This one.
You don't fix the storm by folding yourself. She don't want sweet, she wants a man who won't